Good day to our listeners. I am Nicolas Bornozis of Capital Link, and I'm delighted to welcome you today to Capital Link's Trending News webinar series. We are privileged to have with us today Mr. Alexander Saverys, the CEO of CMB.TECH. CMB.TECH is a major diversified and future-proof maritime group with a dominant presence across many key market segments. The company's shares are listed on Euronext Brussels and the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol CMB.TECH. Now, let me welcome Alexander to our discussion, and I'd like to preface by saying that, Alexander, I hope you recall back on March 11 of 2024, we had the great privilege to have you with us in New York as the launching keynote speaker at the 19th Annual Capital Link International Shipping Forum. At that time, you had concluded the Euronext transaction, and you shared your strategy and vision for the group and the industry going forward. So, as we were discussing before starting our webinar today, you have really been relentless and unstoppable, implementing your strategy and vision. And one of the things that I credit you, among many others, is that you have a very clear strategy, very clear convictions, and you deliver on them. Since last year, you have really grown CMB.TECH, and the recent Golden Ocean transaction is absolutely transformational. It catapults CMB.TECH as the largest publicly listed diversified maritime group in the world and one of the largest shipping groups, public or private. So I think that it would be more interesting for our discussion today to focus on strategy and vision for CMB.TECH and the industry, rather than the merits of the transaction that we have elaborated very well in many instances. So let's start our discussion. You have stated many times that your strategy focuses on 4 pillars: building long-term shareholder value through diversification and decarbonization, while remaining customer-centric and, of course, aspiring to attract the best talent to work with you. So let me start by asking you, why do you choose the name CMB.TECH? The name itself is quite telling. So what does it say in terms of branding? And also, I'd like to add to that, what do you mean when we refer to CMB.TECH as the future-proof maritime group?
Well, thank you very much, Nicolas. Let me start by thanking you for inviting me today, and thanks for your kind words. And indeed, you start with the beginning. The name of our company, CMB.TECH, actually comes from CMB Technologies, which is a little division we started back in 2015 to focus on digital solutions for our fleet, but also on low carbon solutions. And it started with only one employee, one person, Roy Kampe, who's today our Chief Technology Officer. And it has grown to the company we are today. And we decided to give the name of our group the name of that division because it shows very well what we are about and what we are doing. CMB, on the one hand, is the legacy business. Compagnie Maritime Belge, it's a company that goes back to 1895. It shows the strength of our history, the strength of having gone through many different shipping cycles. And the tech and the technologies is basically the future and what we want to bring to our industry in the next phase of the development of this wonderful industry, which has been going around for thousands of years. The word future-proof, I know it might seem an empty word. It's a concept that people like to use. But for us, it really means making products that our customers need tomorrow. And trying to see what kind of ships, what kind of engines, what kind of trades, what kind of cargo our industry will be moving in the next decades, and being prepared. And as you know, in shipping, our investment cycles are quite long. So if you put future-proof in your DNA, you start to look ahead, you try to look ahead, and then eventually you hope to develop the projects that the industry will need, not today, but in a couple of years from now. And it takes time. So that's in a nutshell to explain what we are about.
Thank you. Now let's start, going back to your strategy and the 4 pillars. Let's start with the first point on diversification. Now, what is CMB.TECH post the Golden Ocean merger? Your diversified fleet commands leading positions across several segments, You will now have more than 250 ships across dry bulk, chemical, and oil tankers, containers, offshore wind, and you also produce, distribute, and transport hydrogen and ammonia. So can you please take us briefly through the footprint of the group post the merger?
Yeah, so we're active in six marine sectors, maritime sectors, who are reflected in separate maritime divisions. The biggest, if the Golden Ocean merger is approved by the shareholders, will be the dry bulk division, where we'll have about 120 ships in that division. The second biggest, which is today still the biggest, is our oil tanker division, crude oil with Euronav. We then have a relatively small container shipping division called Delphis. We have our chemical tankers, 16 vessels in Bochem. And then we have a number of vessels, a very large division, which is offshore wind, called Windcat. It's a lot of crew transfer vessels that can transport about 20 passengers to the offshore wind parks, mainly today in Europe, but we are expanding our presence globally. And then last but not least, the latest addition is our workboat division, where we have some ferries and tugboats. Now, across all these divisions, we want to offer the best, the most modern, and the most low carbon vessels that are available. And it's basically three things. It's either just modern efficient tonnage, which is still burning diesel, and we still have a lot of these ships, and we are very happy to have them because it's a solution we can offer to our customers today on the water. A second is a type of ship which we call hydrogen or ammonia ready. So these are vessels that can be retrofitted to hydrogen and ammonia later on. And the reason they are still ready is that the engines are not ready yet. So awaiting the development of the technology, we can retrofit them at a later stage. And then last but not least, and this is by far where we are investing most money, is to develop ships that are fully fitted to use alternative fuels, low carbon fuels, zero carbon fuels like ammonia and hydrogen. And supporting this whole organization on the maritime side are two divisions, one which is focused on developing engines and the other which is focused on sourcing the molecules, so finding the fuels. If you want to compare it with cars, we are building the Teslas, but we also need the fast chargers. And so we are trying to secure ammonia and hydrogen globally through either our own production or through third-party partners.
When you talk about producing the engines, are you actually manufacturing the engines or are you providing solutions for the engines?
It's a very good question. We do not actually manufacture the engines. We work together with the original equipment manufacturers. One very good example is WinGD. We have a collaboration agreement with them to develop two-stroke ammonia engines, but we are working with very different engine manufacturers. They produce the engines. We try to bring in our hydrogen and ammonia know-how to co-develop them and actually to also to accelerate the development of these engines, because obviously we are their prime customer. We are using these engines on board of our ships.
So I had a question further down on decarbonization, but you already provided a lot of information on that. So let me stay on this question. On decarbonization, why did you choose hydrogen and ammonia?
Simple, it's chemistry. It's the only two molecules that are carbon-free. LNG contains carbon, methanol contains carbon, biofuels contain carbon. Ammonia is NH3, so it's hydrogen and nitrogen. And of course, hydrogen in its purest form is just hydrogen. If you burn these molecules, you don't emit any CO2. Of course, there's more than only chemistry. There's also our path or our view to the path to the cost of these fuels. We believe that the pathway to bring these fuels at a cheap cost is much more promising than the other fuels that I just mentioned. So on the one hand, it's the carbon content. On the other hand, it's the cost.
So when you go to the existing fleet, either your fleet or the industry, is retrofitting going to be, I mean, you need to do something with the existing ships that are conventional. So,
well, retrofitting is always possible, but it's going to be too costly, in my humble opinion. The only ships that will be retrofitted is ships that are truly ready to be retrofitted. Now, there's a lot being said about methanol ready, ammonia ready, hydrogen ready, where it's just a piece of paper. But if you really want to be able to retrofit a ship, you will have had to make investments from the onset at the new building yard. I don't think that a lot of the existing ships that are on the water can be retrofitted from a financial point of view. We will need new buildings.
You have a very sizable new building program, I think over 46 ships. So what these are eco, dual fuel, what kind of ships are these? that you are building?
All of them will be fitted with ammonia or hydrogen engines, except the ones where the engine is not ready yet.
I see. And the deliveries over the next couple of years, am I right?
Yes, we are, as we speak, delivering. The first ammonia vessels are delivering next year in 2026. We will have 9 in total, 8 bulkers, 1 container ship, and then it will continue in 27, 28, and beyond.
One of the questions that we hear many people being concerned about is the global infrastructure for the refueling with these alternative fuels. How do you plan, and especially for ammonia and so on, how do you plan to address that?
Well, it's of course a concern. This is not existing because there is no demand from the shipping industry yet for these fuels. I would like to add, however, that a lot of ports globally already have ammonia infrastructure because there's ammonia tanks, which is gray ammonia, is already a molecule which is traded quite often and in many different ports. So you do have the tank infrastructure. And then on the other hand, to bunker the ships, there's not that many bunker barges for ammonia, but we do have a lot of LPG ammonia carriers which are available, which could do a ship-to-ship transfer. So in the very beginning, it will of course not be optimal, but there is at least already some kind of base infrastructure to develop ammonia as a fuel, very similar to how the LNG development came about.
And that will accelerate as we go forward.
Of course. I mean, as we go forward and more ships hit the water, you will have a demand that will be created. And already now, a lot of industry participants are eyeing the bunkering infrastructure and the supply of the molecules.
So let me go now to the diversification aspect. One of the things I have witnessed is the kind of disparity, if I can call it that way, between the private and the public sector. You look at the private sector, and most of the large ship owners, they already operate in a variety of sectors for a number of reasons, to counterbalance cyclicality and so on. But when it comes to the public markets, we see that they tend to follow a different concept. They tend to have the pure play aspect of having the companies focusing on one single sector. And the thesis is that this enables investors to actually pick more easily the timing of the sectors they want to invest in and the point in the cycle and so on. So you have followed the path of putting everything under one roof, so to speak. It creates a different investment thesis. So if you can share with us the reason for doing that, and what would be the benefit both for CMB.TECH as the holding company and also for the investors who will be your shareholders?
Well, again, I think the answer is very simple. I want my company to be around in 50 years from now. If you're a pure play, you go from boom to bust. You take, or you are sometimes forced to take the wrong decisions, in my book, to continue to invest in a sector, for instance, when the order book is very high or when the market is not promising. And so it might be an interesting play for short-term investors, but for long-term investors that want your company to thrive throughout the cycles, being diversified means resilience, means that you can take the right decisions throughout the different segments that you are in, depending on where you are in the cycle. Now, I understand that many investors in the shipping space like the pure play. But quite frankly, these are usually people that trade around our share, that are coming in and out. And of course, we need that from a liquidity point of view, but it is less interesting in my book in terms of creating long-term value. So that is the reason we do. And you mentioned the private ship owners who are usually investing across segments. There's a reason why they do that, because they want to be around in a couple of decades from now. So I think that's the right strategy in shipping today.
So, remaining on that point, one of the chronic issues with listed shipping companies that I think everybody has been complaining about, and correctly so, is the discount to NAV. Do you believe that the diversification strategy should or could achieve a better valuation?
Yes. And let me say something about NAV. I am very frustrated by the fact that our industry is measured basis the liquidation value of a company. NAV is just the value of your ships minus your debt. That's not really sexy in terms of valuing business, which is generating a platform with commercial people, operational people, technical know-how, engineering know-how. That is really valued at zero if you value companies at NAV. Now, even with that, which is already not a kind of nice way to value companies, a lot of stocks are trading below that value. And I think the reason for that is there's many reasons. It's sometimes subscale, there's not enough liquidity in the share, people don't believe in shipping long term. We are trying to address all these things by being large, by being diversified, resilient, have more liquidity in our share, because after the year and a half takeover, our liquidity has been limited to 8% free float. So that's not enough to attract big investors in our share. We hope if the Golden Ocean transaction goes through in a couple of months from now, that we will increase that. It should normally go to 38%. So we'll make it more attractive. And ultimately, Nicolas, we would hope that our business is not valued on the liquidation value of our company, but on our earnings and cash flow generating potential going forward.
I couldn't agree more with you. Actually, in our latest forum in New York, we had a panel on that, spot on addressing the point of it makes no sense to have this this valuation disparity. And you very correctly pointed out. I mean, all these shipping companies, you make huge investments in infrastructure, technology, chartering organizations. I mean, you name it. So I think we need to educate the market better on the critical role of shipping in the global supply chain. Shipping is an industrial operation. It's not an exotic business. And I think education to a broader investor audience is key here.
Sure, and look, I'm not saying that we're doing everything right. I think investors also want stability, they want clarity, they want good governance, they want scale. And let's face it, ever since shipping companies started getting listed 20, 30 years ago, there's not always been only positive stories. So we understand that we have a reputation which is not the best. I think it's up to companies like ourselves and all the rest of the industry to prove that we can really be interesting for investors and really create long-term value.
So let me go now, let me look ahead and look at further potential expansion. You have already achieved substantial growth, either organically or through your S&P activity and of course through the mergers. And you have a very large new building program. So is further growth still an option? And given the diversity of your operations, is there any particular area that you're more likely to look at?
I'm going to say two things on that. The first thing is, of course, we still need to make sure that the Golden Ocean merger goes through in a good way so that we can integrate the business with our business in an optimal way. I'm not expecting too many, road bumps or bumps on the road, but I think that's an important one. So that's our first focus, of course, for the next couple of months. But growth will always be on the agenda. And even more so after the Golden Ocean transaction, because we will have a much larger balance sheet. And a much larger balance sheet means that not only are we more resilient throughout the cycles, but also that we can seize opportunities. It's very simple. If you have more means at your disposal to seize opportunities, then obviously you will be able to grow more. So I'm definitely not going to rule out further transactions, whether it's M&A, whether it's acquiring fleets, whether it's doing more new buildings, but only, of course, if it is value creating for our story and for our company.
So now let me go back to our discussion on decarbonization. Clearly, you have a very specific strategy, and that strategy is driven by your convictions. But if I look at the industry more broadly, I think we see a little bit of disparity here. We see the IMO on one hand having its own objectives. We see a number of major owners objecting to those targets. Then we have the new US administration with their own ideas. So my question here is it likely that regulation will remain pivotal, a key driver in the decarbonization process? And what kind of regulation are we going to have? Is it going to be regional, global, mandatory? I mean, how do you see this developing?
Well, there's things we control and things we don't control. So obviously I can have an opinion, and I can also write letters if I want to, like some other ship owners have done, and express my opinion. Ultimately, decisions will be taken at the international level, at the regional level, at the local level, and we will have to comply with these regulations. In some ways, regulations can accelerate developments. And let's face it, what has been decided at MEPC 83 should be positive for the CMB.TECH story. if it is, of course, ratified in the month of October. It's definitely a very good step in the right direction. Sometimes regulations can basically work against you, depending on what you are doing and what the regulation is about. I think without the regulations, our business model also needs to stand. And what I mean by that is we cannot rely on taxes and subsidies to make our business model successful. We need to be able to offer products to our customers that are competitive, regardless whether it's diesel or ammonia. So ultimately, my goal and the goal of our company is to bring down the cost of these low carbon decarbonized solutions. Because if they remain 2, 3, 4 times more expensive than the diesel alternative, no subsidy or no tax will ever be able to bridge that gap. So it's a kind of a two-way approach when we look at these things. Regulations can be good, can accelerate things, but our business model needs to be able to stand on its own as well.
Alexander, on that, can I ask you, bringing down the cost of these alternative fuels, as you very correctly pointed out, is that something that the ship owners can really impact, or is it the producers of those fuels that have to work on?
Of course, it's the producer, and it's not our job to produce fuels. But to that, I would immediately say, if we are not going to do it, then nobody's going to do it. We are in transformation, Nicolas. We have seen car manufacturers step into solar panel production and battery production. We have seen different industries develop in different ways. If, as ship owners, we basically always put the responsibility of the energy transition in the hands of others, then nothing will happen. We can be a driving force. We have made a lot of money over the last 3 years after 15 years of crisis. I think we can put some of that money to work and actually accelerate certain developments. And I'm not the only one saying this. I think there's other ship owning companies that are investing in new technologies, that are investing in the production of fuels, whether it's the fuels I believe in or fuels that they believe in. And I think ship owners can really play a role. And we should not sit on the sidelines and always say it's up to the others, it's up to the others. I think we can be a driving force because we are very big users, because the numbers in our business and our industry are huge. And also, let's face it, we can invest some of the profits that we have made over the last couple of years for future developments.
I think I can repeat the phrase cooperation is the fuel of the future. And I think you're very right that you all need to cooperate and coordinate, and that's what will drive the industry forward. Now, let me go to the next point that I think is very critical. I remember very vividly when you were in New York, how you placed a lot of value on having a major and anchor shareholder in the company. And of course, in your case, the Saverys family. So can you elaborate why is it value added to have a major anchor shareholder in a shipping company? What does it mean? And if you don't mind, your family has been in business for so many years, so you can take us a little bit through your very long and very successful history in shipping. That would be great.
Well, I'll answer your first question first is with an anchor shareholder or with a family shareholder, you have full alignment on long-term value creation. I know a lot of family companies, privately owned companies, private actors that are involved in stock-listed companies. They all share the same long-term value creation strategy, which I think for an investor is a good thing to have. It means good long-term view, no decisions are being taken only for the short-term gain. And I think definitely in shipping with our long investment cycles, that's a safeguard. If you look at the history of our family, it's like any shipping family's history. We've been through a lot of different cycles. We had to reinvent ourselves a lot. We nearly went bankrupt many times. So we know how to navigate all these cycles. We have not always done the right thing. We have done many mistakes as well. And we are trying, of course, to learn from the mistakes that we made and apply that to our future strategy. Our company started as a ship builder. We then got involved in CMB, which was a very diversified stock-listed group in Belgium, but operating globally. And look where we are now. We are branding ourselves as a future-proof maritime group, investing in ammonia production in Namibia, all the way to offshore wind supply vessels in the North Sea, all the way to big oil tankers, which are still moving oil from the US to the world. So we have had a tremendous history, which is running parallel to the history of shipping, which makes it, again, very fascinating, I would say, not only for our family, but for the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. Thank you for that reply. So now let me, we're coming to the close of our discussion shortly. Let me ask you on current market dynamics and the industry outlook. How do you see the markets evolving? Looking at what's happening in the world today, I love one of the slides in your Q4 presentation that it had the headline, "A geopolitical tango dance fueling the tanker sunrise whilst keeping dry bulk in the twilight zone." And 2 months later, you announced the Golden Ocean transaction. So no more in the twilight zone, I think.
Well, let me answer that straight away, Nicolas. I think what we wanted to say at that point is, at that point in time, if you had to take the temperature of the market, you could see that the tanker market, the vibes were positive, and on the dry bulk market, we were in Q1. There was a lot of uncertainty around China, etc. So it kind of was in limbo. But of course, we look at the Golden Ocean transaction from a point of view of long-term value creation, and of course, long-term what we want to do with that company. We think the two sectors that are most promising for the next 18 to 24 months are the tanker sector and dry bulk sector, purely and simply because of the supply side of things. We have an aging fleet. Average ages are hitting all-time highs. We have a very limited order book. There are some sub-segments in dry bulk and in tankers which are a little bit higher than others, but as a kind of rule of thumb, we are at all-time lows in both segments. And we have a lot of inefficiencies on the supply side coming in, caused by all kinds of things. I mean, we had the Red Sea disturbance, but there's others as well. There's congestion, there's new trade flows, etc. So all of that bodes very well in terms of having a supply which is relatively limited for the next 2 years. And then if you look at the demand side, that's just a big question mark. We don't know. The only thing we know is if it's not this year, it will be next year. If it's not next year, it will be the year thereafter. At one point, demand will come back. But we have to be clear here. Uncertainty created by the trade war is not good for the global economy. If it's not good for the global economy, it's not good for shipping. But we had this opportunity to do the Golden Ocean deal with a long-term view, which means that we were not looking at a short-term 6 to 12 months. We know that the next 6 to 12 months could be difficult. It could be much better. It could be difficult. Right now, today, the signals are relatively positive. We see all the markets, bubbling up, but that could just peter off in a couple of months from now. But in the end, with a limited supply of ships coming on stream, with an aging fleet, it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when.
I agree with you. And I mean, clearly, shipping is a long-term business. The assets you invest in are long-term. And shipping will always have a very big critical role in the global supply chain. I think it's worth reminding everybody the famous saying that if shipping went on strike one day, half of the world would starve and the other half would freeze. Because clearly you carry everything that is indispensable for the well-being of everybody around the world. And demand goes up and down, but there will always be demand. So concluding our discussion, can I ask you, when you look ahead, you mentioned the uncertainty. Are there any other risks or challenges that you see as headwinds for the industry or for CMB.TECH?
Look, I think the risks, we all know them. I don't think I need to add any risks to the CMB.TECH story or to the shipping story. I think what is very important for our industry going forward is that we dare to challenge the status quo, that we dare to invest, and that we dare to jump into the unknown sometimes. These are very interesting times. I think we will look back to this period, the last 10 years and the next 20 years, as being a transformational moment for our industry, and not only on the energy transition, but I think also on trade flows, on the discovery of the huge African continent, which will join our industry very soon, which some people are not seeing yet, but they will. There's fascinating things happening. If we want to make it a success, we need to dare.
I was planning to say thank you, but you raised one point about the African subcontinent. Do you mind elaborating a little bit on that? That's something quite interesting.
Yes, Nicolas, I've been always very outspoken about my belief in Africa for a couple of reasons. I mean, the first one, of course, is purely economical and demographical. There's 1 billion people that will be added to the continent between now and 2050. That's a fact. That means more consumers. That means a young labor force. That means people that want to have a better future as well. And as we've seen in the past, shipping always plays a very important role in unlocking the potential of countries that are growing in population. I think the African continent is very interesting for another very important reason. The people you will meet there will skip some of the mistakes the Western world has made in industrializing, in developing their economy. They will look at decentralized energy production. They have been digital in banking, for instance, even before we were in Europe. They will not pull cables everywhere. They will find different solutions, and they will do it better in a more sustainable way and a more cheaper way. And I think that brings me to the last point of the African continent. You will have a totally new, young population, dynamic population, looking at the world from their point of view. And I think we'll be able to learn so many things. So whoever wants to be successful in shipping will at one point need to have an Africa strategy. That is my firm belief.
Very, very interesting, and I thank you for bringing this up. I mean, clearly you've been a big advocate of the topic, but it's absolutely worth bringing it up to the surface more and more. So thank you very much for being with us. It's been a tremendous discussion, very insightful as expected. So I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. I'd like to thank Alexander. So we had the great privilege to have with us today Mr. Alexander Saverys, the CEO of CMB.TECH. Thank you, Alexander, for being with us.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. And to all the listeners, if you agree or disagree, please let us know what you think. I think a good and healthy debate in shipping can only make things go in the right direction. Thank you, Nicolas.
Thank you.